Hello, everybody, and welcome back to M&J Games. I am Michael, and welcome to the last episode of Valley America. Now, we are on episode 13, and there's still a lot to get done in this episode. So, as you see, we're at 99% right now, but we've got essentially this is 12%, this is another 2 to 3%, so we got about 15% there, plus 1% down there, and then about another 1 to 2% when guests leave. So we still got a fair amount left, and really we're just working in this main area over here. Plus, I'll have to do, adding some other like rooftop stuff, some other realism. Like you can see, I need to put some more stuff back here, and there's one of these buildings over here. So I want to make sure that I go over the park, or like you can see the edge of the park here. Like I put this perimeter, this fencing where the coaster's at, but then it just kind of stops. Um, so just trying to make sure I do some of that, and I started to kind of make this a way that there's a path that the trucks and stuff can kind of drive through to get here. Because I mean that's they could easily get through there. And then I started this transfer track, so it's definitely modeled after Gatekeeper. Um, I was thinking about doing a building here, but I also kind of like the idea of having this temple wall that I have. It's almost like a seating wall. Because if you go to Cedar Point, they've got just that's one thing, man. Cedar Fair does a good job of is their coaster plazas are just absolutely phenomenal. Like Banshee might be the best I've seen. Um, like Cedar Fair Parks do a really good job of it. I mean, Fury, Orion, where Diamondback's at. I mean, you go to Cedar Point. I mean, Valraven is just stunning, and then Gatekeeper's the same way, where they've got this kind of wall where you can kind of sit at with this grassy area that kind of overlooks the station. Now, really, it basically goes around this part. If you've been to Cedar Point, you know what I'm talking about. So, and then I've started the queue, and I've kind of hidden the rest of this, from guest view back here. And I need to put some kind of fence up here just for so nobody's kind of running underneath there. I'm just gonna try to, work on figuring out, okay, how can I get this looking the same and so forth. So I think what I need to do is actually move this back a little bit, because if you look here, I need to create the illusion of there being a second side over here, but I don't have enough space at this point. So this is just kind of here as a guide for me to kind of know where to place stuff and stuff like that. So yeah, and then I created this roof thing, because I think what I'm going to try to do here is kind of have this be like a little small retro area with like a diner and stuff like that, a big diner, maybe a small track ride if I can fit it in there. So we will see. But one other thing I want to show you that I've done is, I already put the lights on the coaster back here, which I definitely think looks okay for the first time with me doing that. But then I added coaster lights to the Intamin Wing coaster, and I started with adding them here. And so essentially all that I did was I just counted 5 spots, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then placed the next ones. And so I think that works out well. And then here for the actual coaster hill or lift chain, basically whatever it's called. Yeah, so that's the color I decided to go with right now. Is I think that looks better than the white, because the white looked kind of weird with how it was shining, and even when I turned it to like a very gray, it kind of still kept the weird look to it. But yeah, I think, man, these Intamin coasters in the game, that Sky Rush look to it is the coolest lift hill that they actually have in the game, because you can even see the catwalk here. Like, that's cool. Um, but my question is, like, what good is this catwalk if there's nowhere for you to... Well, you can get down there. Then let's see. Yeah, but you can't get down anywhere there. So it's like, how do you get up there? Oh, stupid me. You climb down here, and then there's a ladder here, and you go, woo! Okay, that's really cool. That just looks really, really cool. So it's actually got a legit purpose, and you can legit like in theory get down there. So that is cool. Well, now I'm going to continue building, and I will see you at the next update. Quick update is now you can see that we've gotten rid of the hyper coaster, or not hyper. Good gosh, what was I saying that? The intimate coaster. And there's still a lot of little things I got to do around the park, but I've kind of been all over the place with this episode. So for the first part, I started working on the station over here. I don't really like it. And then the issue was I made this, and I didn't necessarily like the white because I like that kind of brown color more. But since some of these are using 2 meter pieces, some of them are using 4 meter pieces, I can't change the color of all of them at the same time. So I don't know if I want to go back and do that or if I just kind of will change it up. But I'm not a big fan of that right now, so that will definitely probably change. I still got to kind of figure out what I'm doing with this spot, and I've started working on a little kind of building that that you got to walk through after you leave. And so I'm not keeping this. I was just putting this here as kind of a guide at first of like an extra the basically the other exit ramp that will come down this way. I still got to do custom supports, but you can see I'm at 98%. That's probably about 97, 96% if you have all the guests leave the park. And so, still got to kind of work on this, but I do like how this part feels definitely kind of secluded and like it doesn't feel like you would think the map would just end right there. But what I'm really kind of excited about so far is this little diner thing that I'm creating. So I kind of want it to be a little bit more retro. And I just think that's a really, really kind of pretty look when you look in the background of what the coaster's elements and stuff. And then I've got just a couple little rides that kind of maybe would fit in with this kind of style or theme from the 80s or whatever it might be. Because I know these things have been around a long time. And so I definitely just got to do a lot more in this spot, but I was going to have a little seating area here, little seating area over here. And I don't know if I'm going to do the interior or not. I probably won't, just because I'm lazy with that. But we'll see. So that's kind of what I've got done up to this point. And yeah, so I'm going to continue working, and I'll see you on the next update. All right, so the reason why I'm doing an update right now is because I am literally maxed out until I delete those last 2 coasters, and I still want to kind of work on one of the stations before I delete the coaster. So what I need to do is let the guests leave the park. But I wanted to show you first what I've worked on. And I'll be honest, for about a week or so, I was just having kind of a blockage of like not really knowing what to do. And I don't honestly can't remember if I mentioned this before, but put a couple things in here to have it make it look like the guests are waiting up the elevator. I need to add what would look like a basic queue, and one of somebody looked like they're an attendant working the elevator. And on this side, I put a bathroom to make it look like people are walking out of the elevator. So I'm happy with how that has turned out. And now, I kind of adjusted these doors so this would be where you've got some vehicles and stuff that can go back here. And I still need to do the overall backstage in terms of a lot of the stuff on that building. But now here we have the final area, and it's not fully complete. As you can see, there's some fencing on the ground. There's some fencings. I gotta fix that. But we've got a diner, and I still have a fair amount to do on this, which I just love how that looks with that coaster in the background. And then over here we have another flat ride. So if we go back here, and this looks just like, well, I got the idea for this from the one at Cedar Point. And for everybody who knows what it looks like, you've got these kind of cars sitting out here. And so it's the Valley, since this is Valley America, the Valley Drive-In Diner. And so I'm going to kind of make a custom glass sliding door here and do a little bit on the interior. Not really much. Same thing with doors on the edge. As you can see, I've still got to copy some stuff from here over this way, and it's not perfect. Like, you can see that part right there. So what I think I'm going to do is raise this part up here all the way to the wall, and then kind of extend that part out. But we'll get to that in a little bit. And so you've got a seating area out here. You got another staff access area. And then, yeah, and I decided to go with the rough concrete. And the reason for that is it looks very similar to this already. And it's different than the firehouse brick that I have over here and stuff like that. So I wanted to go with the rough concrete look, and I like it. So I'm honestly really stoked about how this has turned out. I haven't really done much more over in these areas. I've started copying these around. I just need to color code them. But some of the, that Coaster Creations did for his section over there, and I thought that's a good thing to kind of carry throughout the park with the rides, especially flat rides. Like right here will be a sign for whatever the name of this coaster is. And this is actually, I'm really happy with how this looks. This is just the window pieces, and I've doubled them up, and then I've kind of put them on top of each other like that, so it creates this kind of fence line. And so I got to figure out how this ultimately is going to look. And so the idea with this is to have the transfer track essentially above this. Now, the tricky part is I don't know if I can really create much of a walkway. So it might not be the most realistic transfer track I've made, but it'll be there. And, it's kind of tough for space. So we'll see with that. And yeah, so that's basically where I've gone. I went ahead and deleted this station that I'd started working on because I just wasn't happy with it. So I'll kind of work on something else there. But yeah, I'm going to go ahead and close down the park, and I will continue building, and I'll talk to you in a little bit. So another quick update is because if you see here, if I redo what I did last time, I'm over the limit. So I've basically got 2 more coasters to delete. I'm just going to delete one at a time like I've been doing. And this video is going to have a lot of small updates because there's still a lot to get done, but I really like the idea and concept I'm going for with this, because there's a picture of a coaster station called Untamed, and I think it's a Gerstlauer coaster. It's not the Untamed RMC coaster, but that's where I'm kind of getting the idea for this station from, which I need to put some stuff under there to kind of hide that. But I'm going to try to do, because I should have enough at the end to kind of place corbels and roof pieces here. And so they'll kind of give it a really cool kind of look. So I'm really, really excited about how this is going to turn out because I finally kind of got a vision for it. Let me get rid of that. Because that log's a little bit bigger than I was expecting. But yeah, I also did custom supports on the lift hill. So I think it looks good now. It's more spaced out. I tried to have this a little bit higher up. It just didn't quite work out. So we've got this little space where probably would need one more inversion, but I just couldn't quite. One more inversion. I meant one more support, but I couldn't quite find the right spot to put it. And then this transfer track's going to be really basic. Like if anybody's seen Gatekeeper's transfer track, it is about as basic as it gets. So yeah, that's the updates at this point. Not really much more other than that. So this is the last quick update before we actually look at all the rides being placed back and the finale. As you can see, all the coasters gone, everything, and I'm at 100%. So there's a couple things that are not going to be quite as detailed as I was hoping. And one of them is kind of this backstage area. There's essentially going to be nothing back here because I really don't have that many more pieces left. So we'll see what I can do. And then I wasn't really able to do anything back here either. So maybe I'll just try to see if I can place maybe 10, 15 pieces in each backstage area and see if that works. But here's the transfer track for this coaster, which looks a lot like the one that's actually on Gatekeeper. And one thing I have done is I've placed these right here. I'm going to move them once I place the coaster back in, but that's going to allow it to look like there's rows on both sides. And then this would be like the operator's booth up here, which at Gatekeeper at Cedar Point, they actually have it over here. But because of how I turned that out, that would have been a little bit tough to do. And yeah, so this is, I'm happy with how it's turned out so far. And you know, not a ton of detail in here, but I feel like just enough. So happy with how this has turned out. And we got a little backstage, the road to the backstage there. Oh, yeah, I think I need to put hazard strips. I was going to put something down, but we'll see. Ooh, what's going on there? Oh, that's the pavement. That's a different color. Yeah, so we'll change that. But yeah, so this is actually, you know what, we'll worry about that later. Yeah, so happy with how this turned out. I also noticed, because I did go ahead and place everything down just to check, and everything easily places down, which is good. But there are a couple of trees I'm gonna have to move around, and the key is you need to have trees in a group, because you can't move individual pieces after you've reached the limit, but you can move groups, which is why I've got all of these in a group, right? So you can move those. And just to kind of give you an example, let me save it so know where we're at. So for example, let's see. See, now I've hit the limit, right? Well, I can't move. If I just take that one and I try to move it, it doesn't allow me to move it. But if I take this whole group, I can move the whole group. So that's the key, is when you're trying to move stuff at the end. Like I think it was this tree right here gets too close to the coaster. So I'm gonna have to group these two together and then move it and so forth. Yeah, so I will see you in a second once everything's placed back down, and we're not gonna look at the whole park, obviously. We're just gonna look in this area, but I'll see you in a second. All right, we're here at the end, and guys, I am stoked at how this ultimately turned out. And I haven't seen this view or looked at the park in this view in a while, so we're gonna walk in this way. But I just kind of wanted to, because I haven't actually been over this way since I've added in the power tower and different stuff. So depending on which way you enter the park, you know, the sight lines are going to be different in terms of that street. There you can see the tower. Oh man, just I feel like just really happy with how this turned out. And let's go this way. So we head up into the park, into Valley America, another Cedar Fair park, and voila. So now that everything is placed back, it feels good to be able to do that. Everything, this is probably the easiest it was to replace the saved pieces. Everything was pretty straightforward, and the key was I was able to have kind of a reference point when I was placing it back down to get it roughly the same height and in the same spot. So I really just had to adjust everything, maybe a couple inches different directions. But yeah, so here we are at the entrance again. Now, one thing I did is I just kind of copied this over here, but then just made it kind of a longer one. So this would represent where the guests exit at the end of the day. And I was actually able to do more backstage than I thought I would, because I deleted some areas where I had path that really didn't need path. The only area that doesn't have any backstage is this area here. And, you know, it's not the end of the world, so it's all good. But yeah, so now it's kind of, as we're focusing right here right now, and I still just love that view of, so I remember when I started this, I was, oh, that's perfect timing. I was trying to figure out how I wanted this look, how I wanted the layout to be, and I think it reminds me of at Cedar Point, they've got kind of this little nook over here that's got like one flat ride. I believe is more of a kid's style ride. So I went with that and head over this way. And so the guests will be entering the park when I do the final park tour. But now with that diner, I added in some of the kind of food pieces because I don't really use that too often, but I like how it turned out because there's 3 stalls in there. You got burgers, dogs, and, or not, well, I can't speak, burgers, fries, and shakes. So prototypical diner food right there. Now if we go to the backstage here, which I added this once again on both sides, and just kind of a little space. So now, I just added a little bit of clutter, nothing too crazy, just added a little bit, and I actually added some power lines kind of going through this part that ultimately connect with some of the electrical cable boxes. But I had this kind of going around the edge because I did have actually had extra space, like I said, from deleting a couple paths. So I think that worked out well. As you know, normally I guess at theme parks all the lines are underground, but I mean you do have some areas potentially that are above ground. Yeah, and so there's a couple staff doors and rooms. And I do need to go back before I do the final tour and name the coasters and change some of the colors on some of this stuff. But in terms of how everything's placed, it's placed how it needs to be. Everything looks great. And oh, look at that view. So we got a 3-point game right there, which I used Maddie's for a little bit of inspiration with some of the pieces he used, and kind of looking at that, and I was trying to figure out what to go in this spot, and I feel like that just worked out really, really well. Like I said, I need to come up with a name, so but by the time you see this video, everything will already be named. But I think I'm going to put a poll on the channel with just a couple basic pictures to be able to name the ride. So here we got the queue, which kind of reminds me, I mean, obviously this is modeled after Gatekeeper with the part of this, so I was trying to kind of use some of those sight lines and that inspiration, and especially with the station. So now we come here and we've actually got dual-sided lockers, because if you go here, they're on the other side. So dual-sided locker, oh no, okay, all right, that's fine, I can deal with that. Dual-sided lockers. But now we've got on the station platform, if you come up here, this is going to be where, in theory, where the operators are. And the reason I just didn't have the pieces to really decorate the inside well, so I just went ahead with that part right there. And this was probably one of the toughest things to do, was come up with a good, oh, you know what I forgot to do? I forgot to put a sign on each direction. Oh well, we'll see. Maybe we can find a couple signs around the park. But coming up with how to make the layout to where you've got entrance and exit on both sides, that was tedious. So this is the exit that was man-made, essentially, where, oh yeah, I need to adjust that, where the guests are not going to see. This is where the guests are actually going to walk down from up here. Yeah, so really, really happy overall with how this turned out. And then if we look in the backstage area, so you actually walk up here, and I left it open because that's how Gatekeepers is, and then just added in some other stuff that I've done before. And I like the idea of this, since you got track on both sides, having kind of like a little computer system, which obviously if it rains that would get wet, but you see, like, every once in a while you see these transfer tracks that are open air. So then the last thing we're going to look at this episode, which I believe I pointed this out before, but I've actually got a staff room or a bathroom in there so that you can see guests walking out of it. And then I've got a stall right here to where you see people waiting in line to buy it. So yeah, that's trying to get the view of actually going up the elevator. And I added another Dippin' Dots here. Shout out to Tall Guy Gaming, as he likes to do Easter eggs. So a few episodes back, I figured I'd do one for him. But yeah, when you go to theme parks, man, there's like 6 or 7 Dippin' Dots stuff throughout the park. It's just kind of crazy. And Jasmine mentioned something funny the other day that was like, we never actually see, like, those used to be popular, but the only place you see them now is like amusement parks and stuff. Yeah, so now here's the queue for this one. And one thing that I wasn't able to do was create a transfer track for this. So there's just a little bit of open space here that was unintended, but that'll have to do. I could maybe find a tree from somewhere and move them over here. But yeah, so let's go ahead and get an overview look, and then we will take a ride on the 2 coasters to end the episode. When I say 2 coasters, I mean we'll end it with this one as well, because we haven't ridden on that coaster in a while. And I will say that I know Corvus had mentioned working on adjusting, I think it was like the turnout here, I believe. I just wasn't able to do that because of I was having to work on that in a different map, and then trying to make sure that when I adjusted it, it didn't adjust this part of it to where the coaster wouldn't have clearance. So yeah, I just wanted to point that part out, because I did try to look at it, but ultimately it was just too tough when I was having to deal with it on a blueprint on a different map and stuff. But yeah, the overall layout, really happy with it. Really happy with how this turned out. You can see adding some of the rooftop realism stuff. So now let's go ahead and take a ride on the coaster, and then we'll take a ride on the wing coaster, and we'll end the episode. So I want to thank you guys so much for watching. Stay tuned for the final park tours. There will also be a promotional video and evolution of a theme park video like with my last park. But thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.